Oh ho, holy day blessings, friends. Gemini Brett here. All I want for Christmas is a haircut. At least my shirt looks nice. Just got this from Anna. On this 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a fine shirt. So I can show up and look a little bit better for my family. Maybe they won't see my hair. You know, the 12th day of Christmas didn't traditionally lead into Christmas, but rather began there and led to Epiphany, which in the calendar, the way it lands these days is January 6th. And perhaps that's why that is the very day when I will be launching my new Earthstrology School. This kind of came in quickly, wasn't in the plans for too long. I mean, it has been for many, many, many years, but I finally just got the nod from Spirit because I decided to take it easy, move in slowly. We're going to do the first year of this Earthstrology School, which is about embodying the astrological mysteries from the ground up. The first year will be a year of gold, where we will follow the sun. And the second year, the year of silver, where we will tune our rhythms to the dance of matter, soul, and spirit, of earth, moon, and sun. And the school itself will be founded upon the old sacred sciences of number magic and sacred geometry and heavenly harmony and embodied astronomy, so we can better integrate this realm and grow from Earth into the heavens. Yeah, so that is the plan. I hope you will go to GeminiBrett.com courses, sign your name and your email address on the little line that will pop up if you hit that button, and I will be sending more news about the school very soon. Happy solstice to you. I kind of prefer that term. At some point in time, we probably would have called that New Year. Now we do this weird January 1st thing, which is not even a global moment. You know, January 1st, Greenwich Mean Time is many hours before we experience it here in California, where I reside. And why should time be mean anyway? You know, the first place to experience the New Year's moment on their Gregorian calendar is Christmas Island, which is an interesting thing. Anyway, here you see the tree in the midst of the wheel. And the truth is the tree should be pointed towards zero Cancer. I think we'll get into that a little bit and why I call this South Solstice. Here we celebrate, you know, the rebirth of the sun, the coming of the light out of the longest night by worshiping the evergreens, which speak about eternal life. But of course, down under, where the North Star is down under the horizon, this time of year is summer solstice. So I like to, you know, think globally and act locally, but I would also like to use global terms, and winter or summer don't answer that call. So South Solstice does, as we will see, as we learn to observe from space the Christmas tree, which is really about this. Earth. Let me ask you something. I think that's a very important question. What is your primary astronomical experience? Because I will suggest this is also your primary astrological experience. And I use that word primary intentionally. Those of you who are initiated will know why. My argument is that this first experience of astronomy is day and night, which is, of course, all about the light, right? Half of Earth is always illuminated daytime and half of Earth in the shadow. And the world is spinning, and this brings sunrise and sunreach and sun rest and sun root. Earth spins upon this axis, our rotational axis, which defines, this is very important, it defines the cardinal directions. Yeah, so the axis emanates from the heart of Gaia, from the heart of our planet Earth, and moves through our terrestrial poles, pointing to the celestial poles in space. I like to call that rotational axis the spine of Gaia, or the sword of our stone, but it's held many names throughout time. One that is very popular is the world tree. Our experience on Earth of that rotational motion of our planet is that the sky rotates. So if you're in the northern hemisphere and you look north, you will see something like this. I'm going to rewind that and we'll watch once again this star trails time lapse I recorded in Sedona some time ago. And you can see all of the stars dancing in circles about that common point. Kind of looks like a wreath, doesn't it? Or if you've ever strung lights on a tree, maybe you found yourself doing these circles like this. What would that light or star in the middle be? And the answer is Polaris, pole star, north star. Why? Because Gaia's spine, our world tree, is pointing north to that star. In our day and age, Polaris, North Star, is at the center of these wreaths, if you will. And it's the star on top of the world tree. Not every day and age has a significantly aligned North Star as we do. It's a blessing because Polaris will help us get directions. So the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit is the description for the earth glyph. And I could see this globally as Gaia's spine, our rotational axis, and perpendicular to that, Earth's equator, which I like to call the circle of matter, because it's a matter thing, it's an earth thing, though this rotational motion with the equator as our plane brings us such hits as sunrise and sunset. It's much easier to see the quadrants of this cross of matter inside the circle of spirit if we look onto a pole. And so here we're looking down on the North Pole and to Santa's place, you know. I hope he has some good rain gear or water gear or a good boat. Anyway, it's interesting to look at the Earth this way, looking down right above the North Pole. And now the circumference here is Earth's equator. And so I dim the light so we can bring our attention to this interesting truth. Looking down on the rotational axis with the equator as the circle brings us this image of the circumpunct, which of course is the symbol we use to describe the light, to describe the sun. Earth is the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. And that cross of matter happens as a result of the light of the sun. So that circumpunct you could see is maybe Earth orbiting the sun at the center, or as it is from Earth's point of view, sun moving around us throughout the course of the year. And also throughout the course of the day, right? Which brings us sunrise. Now that's happening at the bottom of the screen here, where you can see local Earth, in this case about New York, rising out of the shadow and into the light. Quarter day later, that same place will experience sun at the reach, the midday, true solar noon, halfway between sunrise and sunset. Sunrest is the word I use for sunset. And then sun roots, the midnight sun, halfway between sunset and sunrise, the sun will root down below the ground and from there begin its daily climb. Now these, let's get the earth spinning again. These are astrological terms, right? For the angles, if you're familiar with astrology in the chart, we have these 4 angles that describe these phenomena where the sky is rising or reaching or resting or rooting. These are the 4 R's I like to use to describe those heavenly events. And so this image of Earth as hemispheres in this case, not the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, but rather a hemisphere of light, which we call day, and a hemisphere of shadow, which we call darkness or night. We could see that also in quadrants, right? Where the sun is risen and still getting up to its daily height, or the sun is there and it's reached at noon, and now it's coming down to set in the west, or the quadrant between the setting in the west and sun rooting down below the ground, where then the sun begins its daily climb. And so another quadrant coming up, right? So there's an up below ground and an up above ground, and a down above ground, and then a down below ground. Two of the quadrants go east, two go west. We could go on and on and on, but I want to share this dream. I guess my most recent of these holy day discoveries was the Dreidel, which has four sides. You know, interestingly, Earth in the Pythagorean mysteries is coded within the hexahedron, or the cube. I mean, I think one of the reasons why is like the sacred seven. You get inside here and you are the first and the last, but then you have north and east and south and west and above and below, you see. And it's very firm of the so-called Pythagorean or Platonic solids. Earth is, you know, the most fixed. But we see this in the Dreidel. And I'm told it dates back to a gambling game from Roman times and maybe back into Greece. And it's played in a sense as this kind of gambling, usually for, you know, chocolate coins that look like gold, right? And the general gig is that there's a pot of gold, right? And if the Dreidel lands on one side, you have to put some light into the, put some gold in. If it lands on another side, you take some out. On another side, you take all of it. And on the fourth side, you do nothing. Or in some rules, you put all of your money in, right? Or all of your chocolate, or all of your gold coins, which look like the sun. And I suggest that this is sunrise, you put some light in, sun reach, all of the light, sun rest, you put some, well, I guess sunrise, you take some light, sun reach, you take it all, sun rest, you got to put some light back in, and then sun at the roots, the midnight sun, do nothing, or, you know, you've got to give up all of your light, you see. And this sunrise, sun reach, sun rest, sun root, the daily experience of this great cycle of yin and yang, right? It's also experienced seasonally. So sunrise is like spring equinox, and sun reach is like summer solstice, and sun rest or sunset is like autumnal equinox, and sun roots is like winter solstice, right? In the Northern Hemisphere, of course, this is what we are celebrating at this time, the longest night. And then the sun is born. But somehow Santa's kind of taken over the scene if you ask kids about the Christmas mysteries these days, right? This elf who lives on the North Pole. The only place on Earth where that star, which sits at the top of the world tree, is directly overhead. For me, that's the mystery of Santa's living at the North Pole. Now, the North Pole is super cold, and Santa certainly dates back into earlier beings like Father Frost. And I could get into our shamanic heritage another time. But for now, I want to stick with the sky and show you where this sleigh and reindeer reside. So you are looking here at an asterism that today we usually call the Big Dipper. It's a little part of Ursa Major, the big bear of our heavens, which oddly has a long tail, right? The bears on Earth do not. There's two bears, by the way, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, in a very important place of the heavens. Now, this Big Dipper was once, and in many places still is, called the wain or the wagon. This is an image, thanks to Stellarium astronomy software, of a Babylonian experience of the sky from way back in the day, right? Where you got this kind of agricultural cat who's pushing that wagon, or some will show him pulling that wagon. And I'll show reindeer pulling a wagon called a sleigh. So you can see in the Big Dipper's arc, and then down we say arc to Arcturus, right? So the reindeer arcing through this curve of Bootes, the herdsman constellation who herds the big bear, some would say. And there's this bright red star, Arcturus. Oh, so we're going to need one more reindeer. Thanks. We'll drop Rudolph, the red-nosed Arcturus deer, in there. Okay. So follow the arc of the dipper, or the arc of the wain, the wagon, the sleigh to Arcturus. We also use the dipper to star jump, very importantly, in a different direction. We use what are called the pointer stars to find Polaris, or North Star. That star that's at the top of the world tree, that star that lives only at the zenith, at the top of the sky, if you're standing at Santa's place in the North Pole. And all of the stars in the Northern Hemisphere sky are going to wreath around this, circles of lights, okay? Including Santa and the sleigh and Rudolph, right? So every day, but also, and maybe most importantly, Christmas Eve, Santa and the reindeer will circle the entire globe, delivering toys to all the girls and boys and everyone, I guess, who's been nice, you know? So there you have it, Santa's sleigh, the deer, the red-nosed Rudolph circling the globe on this important winter's night. And why at winter time? And I think so much of that we're going to have to reach back into older traditions. You know, this tree thing is celebrated as a New Year's tree in many places still today. And many of them will call that January 1st, this interesting date somewhere between Christmas and Epiphany. And, you know, to really get into the Christmas mysteries, we'd want to bring in the three kings, or the magi. We have three stars in the sky that we call three kings to this day, you know, in many of the Latin speaking countries, in Spain, Tres Reyes, which is celebrated not at Christmas or January 1st, but at Epiphany on January 6th is kind of the big thing. And I'm not going to get so much into that today, or the manger or the virgin birth, but that's all in the heavens too. I want to continue to just tell you why I call this South Solstice. This is a very important truth of the tropical zodiac. Astronomers and some astrologers are very confused, and you know, astronomers will often attack those of us who utilize the tropical zodiac and say that it's fake because our signs no longer align to the constellations like they did 2,000 years ago. They are right about that. What they are wrong about is a misconception of what the tropical zodiac and what the tropical signs are. I find many astrologers aren't aware of this either. And what I want to show you, and too quickly maybe for it to land, typically this is something I teach over, well, actually several classes, but the tropical zodiac is a directional device. It's completely tied to Gaia's spine, to the sword of our stone, to the world tree, which really needs to point here towards zero tropical Cancer. Why? All right, let's take a peek. So first of all, this is the reason for the seasons. Our rotational plane, the circle of matter, the equator, is tilted in respect to our orbital plane, which is called the ecliptic. And that's the plane where the sun lives from our point of view, always. It's the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship. And since the sun lives there, I like to call the ecliptic the circle of spirit. So the circle of matter and the circle of spirit are tilted in respect to one another in our day and age by about 23.5 degrees. You know, 23.4 is a better number, but if you use that, then you have to, you know, mathematically honor the truth that from the horizontal, that angle would be 66.6, and nobody wants to hear it. So 23.5, 23.5, it's really like 23.44. This changes over long periods of time due to a fascinating rhythm called nutation, and story for another time, okay? This is a very important time that we are looking at here. It is the one time each year when the sun is due east from the center of Earth. Why can I say that? Right? Remember, our rotational axis describes north and south. It defines the directions. And while, yes, it points to Polaris, I'm going to have to take Polaris like off the screen because it's very far away. So everywhere like to the right on this screen is Polaris, is north, right? And I mean, truthfully, Polaris, like where I sit, 38 degrees north of Earth's equator in the Bay Area of California, same as Athens, Greece, though I experienced the sunrise many hours later. At 38 degrees north of the equator, the North Star is 38 degrees north of the horizon. Now, I could walk towards that star on the ground, and I think you'd agree I'd be walking north. Yeah, right? Like I don't have to levitate up and fly towards that star. Eventually, if I walked far enough and swam some or floated or whatever I could do, I would get to the North Pole, and then that star would be right above my head. But the point I very importantly want to share is like there is a local horizontal horizon north. And it's not flying up towards that sky, it's just a star, it's walking in the same direction, you see. And why I want to share this is because this is very importantly true. There is a point of the ecliptic plane, the plane of Earth's annual revolution or orbit about the sun, the plane of the year, towards which the Earth is always leaning north. There is a north point. So we're going to see that in just a season, but we're starting here when the sun is due east of the center of Earth, and it's a time called March equinox. And you know, Easter is aligned to that time. Not exactly, because interestingly, Easter is honoring in the way we calculate it these days, right? The magical 7 days of the week, right? This is, dare I say, solar worship. So Sunday, but it also tunes to the rhythms of silver, the first Sunday after full moon, and the rhythms of gold and earth and gold, right? Earth and sun, right? So the first Sunday after full moon, after March equinox, which I can call East equinox because that's the time when the sun is due east, not of New York or the Bay or Athens, Greece, but of the center of Earth, where we measure astrology from, that heart of Gaia, where we are all one. All right, there's too much to say about that, but I want to at least plant that seed. Let me say for now, in the tropical zodiac, this moment, this annual moment, annual, Anu, the sun, this moment when Anu is due east of the center of Earth, where we are all one, we earthlings are all one. This is Earth experiencing sun ingress tropical Aries. And then the northern hemisphere spring or southern hemisphere autumn is the experience of sun moving through the tropical signs called Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, which are northern signs. So here we have June solstice. I can call this north solstice, summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And hopefully this graphic, though certainly not drawn to scale, will help you see why, right? Look at how the northern hemisphere of Earth is leaning out of the shadow, leaning north towards sun. This is the only moment of the year when the sun is due north of Earth's center. Now, again, it's not like north, like Polaris, like the northern axis is actually pointing to that star up there, but it is the sun aligned between Earth and that point of the orbital path that Earth's northern axis is always leaning towards. And this is why we've got to put the tree pointing down if we use a 0 Aries on the left chart wheel, as we often do, because it's an amazing astronomical device why that 0 Aries point is due east of Earth's center, always, in every moment, forever, if you utilize the tropical zodiac, which is the directional zodiac. The cusps of the cardinal signs are aligned to Earth's cardinal directions. I'll show you one more cool key about that in a bit. So Earth's always leaning north towards the north point, which is the cusp of tropical Gemini and Cancer, right? So the world tree is always leaning in that direction. And of course, in the Southern hemisphere, because deep shadow, that's when, maybe the evergreen worship really should go down. In Northern hemisphere, we're going to have to get a couple seasons from there, right? We get to the point when the sun is due west of the center of Earth. And so we use Libra, which is the symbol of the setting sun, the true energy of the Western experience, right? And another season later between that September equinox and December solstice brings us to this point where Earth is experiencing sun move from tropical Sagittarius to tropical Capricorn, December solstice, or I just prefer to say south solstice. And I can because this is that one moment each year when the trunk of the tree, when the southern axis is leaning towards the light. When this happens, that southern axis leaning towards the sun, when the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. So if any of you, like me, have experienced an attack from astronomers who say you are whack because you're using this not constellational zodiac, you can tell them that it's about Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, maybe the world tree. If you want to speak their language, just tell them, look, the tropical zodiac is aligned to Earth's cardinal directions. Oh, no, not that magnet stuff, friends. I mean Earth's rotational axis. And by the way, when we see sun ingress tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above the Tropic of Capricorn. So you'll see these weird models today that say, wait a second, no, because that's actually in our day and age, and this changes with precession over the great year, the great cycle of about 26,000 years. In our day and age, the sun is at 0 Capricorn in the tropical zodiac, the south point, and it's in the constellation of the Archer. And I use that term Archer rather than Sagittarius because constellations and signs are very different things. So if they tell you that you're out of whack because you're using this not constellational zodiac, and this isn't Capricorn, this is Sagittarius, that, you just say, why don't you call it the Tropic of Sagittarius then? The tropical zodiac runs between Earth's tropics coming from Greek tropikos, which means turnaround, because every year, the sun at solstice, which means the sun stops, will stop moving south as it does for 6 months and turn around at the Tropic of Capricorn and then start moving north from there, very slowly because the sun was stopped. But at Aquarius, now you can see that sunlight shining further north than the Tropic of Capricorn, or maybe we could say less south than its bounds, the tropics. It starts moving much more quickly here at Candlemas time, and we will see an interesting sparkle go across the screen. And now we will get to this point, the sun's ingress tropical Pisces, much further north of the Tropic of Capricorn. So there's places, at this point in time, here in Southern Africa, who are experiencing a day with no shadows because the sun is directly overhead. And that happens at a very special place on Earth called the equator, at equinox, you see. So when the sun ingresses tropical Aries, it's shining directly above Earth's equator, equinox. And we have equal light and equal night, kind of. That's a tale for another time. I want to show this to you from a different perspective, from a geocentric perspective. So here's our goat, our Capricorn goat. Why? Because the goat begins the climb. We usually show a sea goat. Where is it climbing from? The horizon, the water, the ocean, right? I mean, we could even get down to the bottom of the bowl, right? Earth's body stretches down into the water as the ocean is the tea that sits in the cup, and the brim or rim of the cup would be the mountains where the goats climb. Anyway, importantly, this in a sense is a northern hemisphere thing to say that it's the goat that takes over at, you know, December solstice or south solstice, because it is winter solstice and it's the sun is low in the sky, which means the shortest day and the longest night. And then what? The sun is born. So it's one thing to talk Santa Claus, you know, you start talking about the one who called himself the sun and compare that being to the sun of the sky with its 12 signs as, I don't know, the 12 apostles, or maybe from an earlier time, the 12 tribes. And you get in trouble with some folks. You thought the astronomers were tough. Don't mess with the church, you know. But look, these apostles of 12 with whom the sun spends time, one of them is named Didymus Thomas. Do you know what Didymus means? Twins. In a different language, so does Thomas. So the fun thing to do is to map those 12 apostles to these 12 signs. But I guess I better just keep to goats and things that are a little bit safer, you know? So in the northern hemisphere experience, this is when the sun climbs. It's funny that we so often like celebrate New Year's by screaming at a ball that's falling. Oh, this is when the sun rises. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's summer solstice. And yes, the light ball of the sun will now begin to slowly fall. Here in the northern hemisphere, of course, December solstice, south solstice, winter solstice, right? And this is when the sun, I'll get a little nerdier, has maximum southern declination. A declination, which means an angular measurement north or south of the Earth's equator, the circle of matter. And the maximum southern declination is the Tropic of Capricorn, about 23.5 degrees. So the goat from there will begin to climb. I'm going to bring this goat and direct your gaze to where the sun is here in this geocentric or earth-centered image. And you will see that the sun there on the ecliptic, which is the rainbow sign colored, element colored circle of gold, the circle of spirit where the sun lives, this is when the sun is its furthest southern expression. And from there, the sun climbs, you see? And now, again, let me just rewind. If we're talking southern hemisphere, that's actually the highest midday sun of the year, the summer solstice, right? There's a very important key here, and I'm not going to say much more than this. Investigate the apex of the sun's way. If you do, you will find out that the Earth is moving north through space. So when south solstice happens, now the sun for 6 months will be moving north on our horizons, and we'll be moving in Earth's experience in the same direction that Earth is actually traveling through space. Why? Because our whole solar system is. Check out the apex of the sun way. It's a really powerful proof that the tropical zodiac, which is a directional device, applies to both northern and southern hemisphere, regardless of the seasonal opposition. Okay. So a little too technical for this short jam, but let's just watch the goat climb from its most southern place, and goat and water bearer and fishes, and then ram, right? Who's going to actually start climbing much faster than. Show you that another time. But for now, let's talk about this image. And let me rewind. So the tropicos, here we have the sun again at the Tropic of Capricorn. That's furthest south of the equator, right? The tropical zodiac is really about the interface of these two planes, the plane of Earth's year, the ecliptic, and the plane of Earth's day, the equator, which most diverge at the tropicos, at the tropics, right? So this is when the sun is most distant from Earth's equator. It's furthest south. It's at the Tropic of Capricorn, as we saw in a different way, right? From there, it's going to start getting less south, moving north until it passes over Earth's equator here at this place where the ecliptic and the equator cross. It's the sun on the cross at the sun's Aries ingress, which is March equinox, when the sun is due east of Earth's center. Do you see east-er? and the sun passing over the equator, Easter, Passover. Now, Easter certainly has some ancient roots, as of course Passover does too. But if you know the tale of Passover, you know, the blood of the ram was painted above these portals. So, children would not be taken in the night. Oh, just keep it that way for now. Really, let's get back to this at equinox time. Okay, that'll certainly be a deep bit of the mystery transmissions in my Earthstrology school. The last thing I want to show you right now is this truth. Like, many will say that Aries is the ram because of that constellation. And then the astronomers say, you see, your Aries sign is no longer aligned to those stars. I look at that constellation, I'm like, what does that have to do with a ram? Let me show you why the ram. Now, part of it is because the sun at that time really starts charging in the sky. And some will say this is resurrection, because at least in the Northern Hemisphere experience, like in places like Jerusalem, where the light was born perhaps in Bethlehem in the Northern Hemisphere at December solstice, the resurrection is when light overcomes night, which is vernal equinox, right? And of course, that's the East equinox or the March equinox or the Aries equinox. Okay. At the time of equinox, now the sun, which started a very slow climb with the goat, like the ram is charging up. And the way the sun works on the horizons, there's much more speed at the points of the equinoxes too. So there's a lot of energies and transmissions of Earthstrology and sacred astronomy that support, well, much of the delineations of tropical astrology and this idea of ram at the east, which likely predates the zodiac. You can see in Egypt, for example, many statues of the ram-headed one and this image of Amun-Ra, who was said to kind of create it all. But why I'm sure this is so has nothing to do with like this shape of a few stars in the sky. I think that we said because those stars at that time were aligned due east of Earth center, they're not anymore, that should be the ram. Why? Because the eastern sky, rams, it rises ram-wise. Let me show this to you. This is an animation cast for the Earth's equator. Up here, I have to tilt my head like 38 degrees, but still the sky always works like this. Stars that rise south of east head to the south and north of east head to the north, always describing this shape of the eternal fountain of youth. And like the horns of the ram, they will hook back around to set in the west. So there you have it, a little bit of the Christmas mysteries and getting ahead of ourselves to Easter and Passover too. Astronomy is a really key ingredient to my mystery school. It has taught me so much about the why of astrology. And I've taught sacred astronomy for many years now, and it's always evolving and changing, and I love it. And I'm always asked, hey, when are you going to teach astrology classes? And I've taught privately for many years, but haven't felt completely ready to teach publicly or start my school until now. And part of that's because I'm going to give myself a good pace this year. This first year, this year of gold, we will work with the solar months, the sun moving through the signs. And there will be initiations for each of those 12 solar months. There'll be a class each month on the archetype, starting with Capricorn on Epiphany on January 6th. And then in January, we'll have a class on time and how the chart works. And then the next month, Pisces, and well, actually, let's not skip Aquarius. Aquarius and polarity and dispositorship, if you know that word. Some like to use the word rulership, not my favorite. I prefer domiciles. It's older anyway, and it makes just a lot more sense. The idea is that each sign has a landlord. Then we'll move on to Pisces and the elements, Aries and the modalities, and it goes on like that. So soon I'll be releasing the curriculum. If you'd like to know what that is, please head to GeminiBrett.com and click the courses tab. and sign up for the wait list, and I'll send you actually many gifts. The first one will be a class that I'm teaching this Sunday, which will be free to anybody who signs up for that list, on the magical time, on the planetary days and the planetary hours, and amazing kind of mind-shattering correspondences with the alchemical metals known to align with each of these planets, right? The sun with gold, the moon with silver, etc. So there's images here of what's called the Chaldean order and planetary speed. There's also images of metallic conductivity and increasing atomic number. It's wild, but I'm really interested in kind of exploring more and showing why 24 is necessary. Why 24 hours with 7 days? I mean, the day, the year, these are very astronomical, and I'm very interested. I think one of the main purposes of the Earthstrology School is to help us reconnect to natural time. And days and years, though there are slightly different types, are pretty clear to discover astronomically. It gets a little trickier with months. And why 7 days in a week, and why 24 hours, and why 60 minutes and the like, you know? And there's a lot to find in that septagram. All right, well, Isabel's barging in to say our time is just about over, friends. I want to end, however, with this image, and thanks to my beloved Anna Zaharia for creating this album cover for a solo piano album of Eric Deutsch's masterful translations of astrological transmissions that I've written for each of the 13 new moons of 2022. So we've been doing this for some time. We call it soul songs, and I've got a kind of a astro harmony map where I can take signs and turn them into notes, and I take principal aspect groups in a chart and build kind of harmonic games of tension and resolution. And I feed that to Eric along with all these kind of like symbols. So the first is Janus, the two-headed god with the withered face, looking back to the challenges of the year past, and the childish gaze towards the one to come, whispering quietly this word, hope. And there were 13 of those and lots of other symbols. So you can go listen to this at Eric's Bandcamp page. You can see the URL there at the bottom of the screen. And if you download it for $7 or more, you name your own price. You'll also get 39 pages of my astrological notes that I gave to Eric. And, you know, they're not saying exactly what's going to go down next year in so many words. They really want to address these energies musically. Eric and I just had our second interview with Amanda Pua Walsh at Astrology Hub. Last year, we kind of first spoke about the Soul Song project and how we treat astrology charts musically, and why, and what does it do for people. And this year we talked about this record, which, by the way, Astrology Hub very much helped fund. So I want to say a big open-hearted thank you to them, and thanks to all of you out here who, like me, are students of these celestial mysteries. I very much appreciate the present of your presence. May your wishes and your dreams be answered for this year to come. May we choose to compost this old year into rich soil to plant seeds, to move forward in a good way. If you've enjoyed this video, please share it around. And I sure hope that I will see you in Earthstrology School. If nothing else, sign up for that free lesson, which I will be sending a link to before Sunday, when it will be recorded this year of gold, besides the Thursday, Jupiter's Day Epiphany start, because I wanted to catch this chart. This year, our classes will be on Sundays, twice a month, 9 a.m. Because it's the year of gold, I'll follow the sun. All right, friends, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope that you are able to rest and receive the blessings and the guidance of the stars always.